goodness me, what a shot!
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. It's Chris here with you for a packed episode with two fantastic guests coming your way today. Later on in the show, we're going to be speaking to Aleksa Pavicevic about the Women's Champions League and the road to Budapest, which is unfolding very, very nicely, as well as a little chat about the international matches taking place this week. But before we speak to Aleksa, we'll start the episode with Katie Timmermann from the US women's national team to talk to us about the social media explosion that has happened over in the US since January, when the open tryouts for the women's national team was promoted by social media sports influencer coach Jackie J. And from there, the interest in the team and the sport has really grown among the online influencer community and a brand new group of sports fans over in the US, which has also fascinated a lot of people over in Europe and around the world as well. Katie Timmermann, a former professional basketball player who made the switch over to handball a couple of years ago and is over in France at the moment, trying to get herself a contract for the new season. So we'll speak to her in a moment. And next week on the show, we will have Alex Kulesh back to chat a little Champions League on the men's side, and we'll be doing that on the Morning Club. And if you haven't joined the Morning Club yet, and you want to join us for some bonus episodes, such as the one we made public for everyone earlier in the week about the Olympic future of this sport and the potential shift over to the Winter Olympics, then join us on patreon.com/handball hour for those extra episodes, bonus content throughout the season, and access to our Discord, a wonderful little community of handball nerds. So without further ado, we'll jump in to the first of our two interviews. As I said before, you'll hear from Aleksa Pavicevic in the second half of the show. But first, we'll hear from Katie Timmermann and the recent buzz about the US women's national team. So joining us on the podcast today is Katie Timmermann, a former professional basketball player, now setting her sights fully on LA28 with the US women's national team. Katie, joining us from France this afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Very good, and nice that you could take some time to chat with us. We had, I think back in January, spoken a little bit about it on the podcast with the explosion of social media and news coverage around the women's national team, the open tryouts which were being held, and something which you were very much involved in. And we'll get to that in a moment, but maybe you can give us a little bit of a intro into you as a handball player and how you first fell into or came across the sport.
Okay, yeah. I was first kind of recruited out of college for handball in 2023. One of the assistant coaches at the time of the national team saw my film from our Pac West championship and decided to reach out and send me a message saying, hey, we're having a tryout in LA, like local to me. It was maybe 10 minutes from my house. So you know what? I was like, why not? Why not go try it out? I have no idea what handball is. He sent me like a little video of this is what team handball is. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went to the tryout. They said I had good potential to eventually make it to the team and then potentially the Olympics in 28. So I decided to make the switch after playing 2 years professionally of basketball overseas. I made the switch at the end of last year, or at the beginning of last year, I should say, in March when I came back and finished that basketball season, and have just been pursuing handball full-time since then, or I guess as full-time as you can in the States. So I've probably played about 12 to 13 months consistently, but technically started in 2023.
Okay, so 2023 is your first taste of it, and then you said you went abroad to play professionally. You were in Korea, is that right?
Yeah, I was in South Korea for 2 full seasons. So I started in March of 23 and then left for Korea at the beginning of September.
Okay, and was there a certain point then that you also figured that you wanted to kind of dive into that switch? Because I guess the prospect of playing professional sport in a sport that you've grown up with is, I mean, every athlete's dream in one way or another. So quite a big shift to then decide, okay, I'm going to jump into a sport that I have a small taste of, but kind of no background in.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a shock, but I knew, at least for me, when I first started handball, that I would come back to it, but I wanted to really live out that dream of playing professional basketball overseas. Like, it's what I trained my whole life for, essentially, and like what I did in all of high school and college. Like, I was working to that goal of playing basketball as long as I possibly could, whether that be just after college or professionally. But once the opportunity kind of arose when in handball, and obviously it has a higher ceiling of potentially going to the Olympics with it, where obviously compared to the WNBA players that we have in America, like I'm not going to rank up to them. I don't really have a chance of making the Olympics in basketball in that aspect. So that's kind of one of the mental shifts that I made, or one of the deciding factors for me to ultimately go from basketball to handball.
Talk to me a little bit about your positions and your kind of abilities in both sports. So if there was something that kind of automatically transferred for you, because I know that is always a heavy topic when American sports people and American sports culture talk about taking up handball. Naturally, basketball and handball have a lot of base similarities and skills that transfer. But what kind of basketball player were you, if we can say, in the past tense now that you're not playing professionally? And how did that kind of inform what direction you wanted to take as a handball player?
Yeah, so I was a shooting guard in basketball primarily, but I also played a good amount of point guard in college. So that's kind of what transferred over to that center back position, since it's a lot of the IQ and decision making and like reading the defenses. So I feel like that was my best skill that transferred over to basketball, and was what has helped me like become good at handball like relatively quickly, is because I can make the reads that not everybody can make, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
from there, like I can pick up the technical skills afterwards, but at least I have the IQ and all of that stuff to kind of push me forward and make up for that.
Was there anything in particular that felt completely like foreign to you, or maybe even 12 months, 13 months after still feel foreign? Because, there are handball players who've been playing for 20 years who still feel like some of the aspects don't do what they're supposed to do. So what was it like for you at the beginning?
I know for me, it took the longest to get used to dribbles and steps, because just having that one extra step from basketball to handball, for whatever reason, just messed with my brain so much. Like, it felt so wrong in order to take that third step, but like now at least it's corrected. It feels normal. And then also dribbling, I would always get yelled at for putting the ball down right away, because that's what you do in basketball. Whereas it's handball, you could take the 3 steps and then dribble and then take some more steps. So I would say those were definitely the biggest two that you can tell in my, like, from when I first started to when I'm playing now. You can tell when I'm more of a basketball player, and then now when I'm more of a handball player.
And you've just moved over to France to train with the club over there. Big step to take. What's the plan for there? Is it a kind of permanent move, hopefully straight away, or is it more of a kind of a learning experience for you?
So to start, this is more like a tryout for about a month long, but it hopes to prepare for next season, and hopes of being able to come for out a full year next year, essentially, and then eventually prep my way to either moving up levels, up divisions, just getting more experience and more reps so I could make that team for LA28.
Yeah, okay. And that's naturally enough the focus for you to be throwing so much into that, which I think is fantastic. And as we mentioned at the top, the stories that came out around January time with the open tryout in California, and the imagination that's been captured by all of this has really been extraordinary, because there's been so much focus, let's say, on the international handball scene among the casual handball fans about the US men's national team, because they've been playing at World Championships the last couple of years, and they have had some impressive performances, and they have kind of been not at the forefront, but they've been there. Whereas with the women's team, there's always been the question about where are the players going to come from? Where's the team going to be? Are they going to be able to compete? And so it was really nice to see this news story break, and to the point where people who have no interest in handball were kind of following it over in Europe and around the world, people sending it to me, and also within the handball sphere, who might not be as kind of as nerdy and looking at what's happening over in the US, really kind of it's spread everywhere. You were there, already part of the team and kind of in the center of it all. But take us through that journey and how that all kind of exploded and how it was for you with all of a sudden getting all this attention.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I was really supposed to be there. I had late last year, I had tried to go to Germany to play with the club, similar thing to what I'm doing now. And I had plans on staying there for the full season, but things with the whole visa situation, they didn't get approved. So I had to come home in about November, December. So I thankfully got to experience everything that happened in January around the LA tryout. It was honestly just so incredible to see how the power of social media or one media influencer could essentially blow out of proportion everything we knew about handball on the women's side in the United States. I think before her video, we had maybe 30 people signed up, and then afterwards, there was like 150 people registered.
Wow.
So that's just insane. Like all of the comments and all the people who I talked to at the actual camp were saying, like, we never knew about handball, but like it's such a cool sport. And that was a very common thing amongst it. And just like it made me really realize how in the States, like it's not lack of talent, it's just lack of knowledge around handball itself. Like we simply don't know the game, not enough, there's not enough exposure for it for whatever reason. And so being able to see that in LA and just really have it take off. And then, like you said, like news outlets from out in Europe were reaching out to me. Like I talked to, I think, a media outlet from Denmark. So like stories were getting all the way over there. We had so many people just supporting us in this kind of newfound love for handball that we had in LA.
You know, the triggering thing was that video from Coach Jackie J. I think it's fair to say that she's what kind of captured the attention for a lot of people. And, you know, coming from a sports influencer like her, also captured a bunch of other sports influencers to go and do the tryouts. And then it was so interesting to see all these kind of mini vlogs and updates from people who were trying out this sport for the first time. And it must have been quite bizarre for you and the other kind of, you know, established handball players having all of a sudden all these different people from different sports, but also, you know, capturing it because these cameras and people recording themselves during the whole process. And what was your kind of way of dealing with that and your role as somebody who was more established in that sense and already familiar with the sport?
Yeah, honestly, I think having it in LA was like a secret blessing in disguise because everyone kind of does take that micro influencer route. And honestly, half of the videos I saw, I didn't even realize they were recording. So honestly, really good on them for like hiding it or being secretive about it. So when I saw those, I was like, oh, this is so amazing to like see everybody's different perspectives and stuff like that. But yeah, being in the thick of it, being established, it was kind of cool because initially I had signed up to like actually go get reps in and go play with everybody else who had signed up. But since it took off, obviously we needed all hands on deck in order to teach everybody what was going on, have enough people at stations and stuff like that. So I turned more into like a player coach role. So I was just on the floor helping everybody out, trying to navigate it. At one point, I became like a goalie coach, even though I'm not a goalie and not a coach in that aspect as well. But like everybody was so, I guess, responsive and so eager to learn, which I also think was super amazing. And they all had such a great mental approach to it. Because obviously they knew they didn't know what the sport was, but they all attacked it with like the same intensity as they would for like a sport they've been playing their whole lives.
Well, with all the fantastic aspects that this brings and, you know, the attention that it brings to the sport, which we can all agree is really needed. And it's funny that it comes from something you can't really plan for as well. You know, just somebody deciding that they're going to champion this sport and this event and then it capturing the imagination the way it did. With that being said, the Olympics now just over 2 years away or 2.5 years away now. The roadmap and the run up to the games is very short. What is if you have kind of insight into the whole approach now from the national team and the coaching staff and blending in the established players such as yourself and the all of a sudden new generation of players where you might get a couple of absolute athletic freaks that would be able to do a job for the team in one way or another. What is the approach there now to piece that all together in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so obviously with our team, we have I would say half of our team as dual citizens already playing out in Europe. So they're already kind of doing their own thing, getting all their experience, whatever. And then the new people who have come to either recent tryouts or who the coaches have identified as potential talents, we have a residency pool or a residency program starting up in Florida. So
Mm.
our ideal is to send them over there for however long they can. Obviously, it's a little hard with like leaving work for X amount of time. It's a big commitment trying to move all the way across the country for most of them and like start a new life essentially and dedicate everything to handball. But our idea is to take all of these newer players into this residency developmental category and build them up from there to the point where they could reach the same level or equal level as the Europeans in that are dual citizens for us.
Okay. It's a big commitment to go over to Florida. I've seen news about that recently, and had seen on the men's side that it had been already kind of implemented in some way. So the idea is to have it for both men's and women's teams for the, let's say, the US based players, right?
It would be
Okay.
both the men and the women.
Parallel to that, players like yourself, the ideal scenario is that you would get to play abroad or to be based, for example, in France or Germany, and to be involved in that sense. For you, that is, I guess, that is something you've already had on your mind for a while, and coming from playing professional sport abroad already, it is maybe not that much of a crazy thing to consider. But what is like the, let's say, the short and medium term goals for you now? Like, what would you consider in your own, personal development for the next year, kind of a success?
Yeah, I guess short and medium term goal would be to find a club out in Europe to play for a full season with. And then from there, like I said earlier, like maybe going up a division the next year, depending on how well I progress. But essentially just in this time, what it's like 2 years almost now, just get as good as I can in as quick of a time as I can. So I'm out here searching for any team, any reps, any possible opportunity to go play, just so I can kind of increase my level to get to the point of playing internationally at a high level.
And all the while, I guess, having to work and make some money out of that as well. I saw you did a vlog recently on your kind of daily life while
Mhm.
back in California. So this, I guess, is a little bit of a step away from that, and taking a massive risk personally.
Yeah, so financially, handball in general financially is a risk in the United States. Like we have to pay for literally everything you can imagine, and then probably more somewhere. So yeah, this whole month while I'm out in France, I am not obviously not working my jobs at home. I'm grateful enough to have the option to do some remote work with like some little side company that I found, but obviously not everyone is that lucky to have that remote option. But yeah, it is definitely a big financial risk because I'm not working consistently this whole month, but I am getting a lot of handball practices within, which is something that I can't get at home. So it's kind of like this awkward trade-off where where at home I'm dialed in on both working and like my physical and conditioning training, whereas in Europe I'm focused purely on handball, and it's a very cool contrast. Like when I'm out here, I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to be a real handball player versus at home. This is what it feels to be like a full-time adult, a full-time athlete, and trying to balance all of those things at once.
The women's national team was, I guess, one big question mark for a lot of people on the outside who just haven't been able to see the team in the last couple of years, because also USA weren't participating in the last World Championship, which I think at the time, when the wild cards were distributed, it was a bit of a surprise to the wider community. They expected it to be the same, exactly the same approach as with the men's national team. Now you have, let's say, you still have the option of getting it for 2027, which would be crucial for the team. But has this kind of last couple of months also given you and let's say the core of the team a lot more motivation in one way, but also a bit of a confidence boost as well, that there is a higher ceiling that is maybe being given with this attention and with the potential for more people to find their way to the team?
Yeah, I think definitely it's been just a positive thing for the program in general, and it's really exciting to see on all fronts. And if anything, probably is lit a fire underneath most of us because now there's technically people trying to come for our positions and our spots. So if anything, we're going to have to keep working harder and keep, when we do have maybe joint camps, show them our side of handball or the European side of handball versus like what those who are just starting out are learning just now. So it's definitely a healthy competition probably going on within the team. We'll kind of see when our first camps come out when we all come together. But yeah, only time will tell.
What is next for the team in terms of camps? Is that all set now for the coming year?
We have a lot of stuff kind of in the works. I don't know if there's anything that I can officially talk about yet, but there are some internal camps being planned as we speak.
For you then, as a Californian, are you born and raised in California? You went to college there, right?
Yeah, born and raised in California.
LA Olympics is incredible. I can't even fathom the personal connection you would have then to the games coming. What can you tell us about even the potential of competing in the Olympic Games for your home nation and what that would mean for you?
Yeah, honestly, just the idea or the thought of it happening is almost a dream come true. But like being able to be there and represent not only the USA but also LA itself, like you said, I was born and raised there. I went to school out in Irvine for 5 years, so it's like an hour from my house. The handball facilities in Long Beach, which I literally drive to and from practice and like pass it all of the time. And it's been really cool just how I've started to share my story. A lot of my friends and family have been like very supportive who are also local. They're like, oh, we want to go see the games. Like, how do we get tickets? Like, everyone's starting to get really invested in handball within my inner circle, and I absolutely love it. And then even just because it is in LA, like they're asking for volunteers within the area. So a lot of people either from my work, like members at my gym, are like, oh yeah, we're gonna go volunteer and then watch you play handball, and like it'll be perfect. It'll be the best of both worlds. And then just like hearing all of that stuff continues to get me more excited for the potential of actually being able to go play in LA28. And yeah, it would mean so much just because I don't know, I've loved this sport in the minimal amount of time that I've had with it so far. So I can't imagine what an extra couple years will do, and then continuing to grow it and all of that stuff. But yeah, just being able to represent my country at the highest stage possible, I feel like you can't really ask for anything more than that as an athlete.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. For all the players that have come in recently from the different sports, is there anything that's really surprised you about their adaptation as well? I mean, as we said, from basketball to handball, there are a lot of transferable skills and, of course, some really dramatic differences. But I've seen players have been coming in from a plethora of different sports, and the USA is not short on athletic talent. Any types of players in particular, or any people that have come to mind when you've seen them and say, okay, they can offer something that I hadn't even considered before?
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of potential and like great athlete that's come out within our camp. I think the funny thing is throughout each camp, you can tell exactly where each person came from, like what sport background they have. Because obviously those who play rugby, they tackle a little more further down or like
Nice.
a little lower. So we had in Florida, we had a girl pick up a couple 2 minutes because she was obviously tackling incorrectly, but she didn't know. And then some people with like who've been throwing their whole lives, like in softball, you could tell immediately as soon as they throw the ball. You could see their agile movements in basketball, the cutting to and from. What else is there? There's lacrosse. Lacrosse has been a big one that's been coming out lately, which we haven't really seen or had much exposure to beforehand. But yeah, and then the volleyball too, you could see all of their steps and then approach into their jump shot is almost the same as like spiking the ball. So it's been really cool seeing every aspect of every sport shine through. And I don't know if there's one or the other that's more advantageous than the other, but there's definitely been some elite athletes, I would say, in each category that's come out.
That's a good one about the lacrosse, and something you haven't seen too much of yet. I think that could really be on the women's side in particular. You could see a bunch of athletes coming through. It's a sport I played in university, and you know the arm movements, but also the tactical approach in attack and defense. I think there's a lot that can be transferred there in terms of understanding. So that sounds exciting. No, it sounds really good, and hopefully the month you have over in France will be a success, and you'll be able to get yourself a club for the next couple of years, Katie. And thanks so much for taking the time to share your experience so far. And I'm sure we'll be staying in touch in the build up to LA and following your journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Joining us to chat Women's Champions League in particular, and maybe a little bit of Euro because it's happening this week. The qualifiers is Aleksa Pavicevic. How are you doing, Aleksa?
Hi, Chris. Happy to join again.
It's great to have you on. And we recently had the conclusion of the group phase of the Women's Champions League. In a couple of weeks, we dive into the knockout rounds and the road to Budapest. So we'll have a little look back on some of the big stories from the group phase with you. And when we mentioned this in our Discord, the first response, almost seconds later, was, I can't wait to hear you discuss Bojana Popovic and her taking over the in-form team in the Champions League. Popovic with CSKA Bucuresti, who have, since she took over at the start of December, gone on an incredible unbeaten run and stormed their way into the top two in Group B. As a Montenegrin yourself, Aleksa, that must warm your heart.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that change was like key topic of the second part of the group phase. I think what she did with that team, it feels like she took maximum of every player there. And seeing them play like that, you're like, whoa, why didn't CSKA play like this for such a long time? And I saw Kristina Nagu also noting that she thinks it's at top of the form. Like, I really think they play good, and also noting the ICA's coach, he says the CSKA is the best team in the world right now, which I can partly agree because I think they have amazing players and she brought the fire in them. So I think they are quite in form and they managed to go from the 5th place to the 2nd place and some results came in. So it's really like turnover in every sense, but I was doing a shift when they qualified and they were not that much happy. And we were like, you qualified for the quarterfinals, why are you not happy? Because of course they meet Esbjerg in the quarterfinals, so it's once again a tough matchup that will be quite exciting.
Incredible potential quarterfinal on the way, and we'll look through the journey for these teams later on. But if we focus on the positive side for CSKA Bucuresti first, and you said that she's kind of brought a fire to the team, and the discussion about where this team was, where these players were at the beginning of the season. They had such a tough start. What do you think the main changes are that Bojana has brought in? Do you think it is a lot of the mental aspect, or are there some tactical things that you've noticed as well?
I think she did what she's best at, and that's bringing the fire in the players. Of course, someone I know very well, Georgina Jaukovic. In the beginning of the season, I was like, why she doesn't shoot or why she's not like she was before. And then Bojana came and I feel like I'm watching a different player like I'm used to, as well as Valeria Maslova, someone she knows very well. She coached her at Budućnost. She was there in the first part of the season, but now she's scoring like 7, 8, 9 goals, like a real top right back. So I think that's what she was best at, bringing maximum out of every single player, literally. Even the bench is used, the goalkeepers are doing well again, the backs are doing well. So I think, okay, there was probably some tactical changes that she changed, but I think it's bringing out the top of every single player.
That's remarkable. And I remember well when we discussed back in December about Georgina Jaukovic and you being in dismay that she wasn't shooting enough. So it's good to see that she's responded in that regard. And it really has shaken up that Group B, which was a fascinating battle among even the top 5, we can say, with ICAS finishing in 5th place and then just 3 points separating the rest of the teams. Odense 4th, FTC 3rd, who looked like they were cruising for quite a while, and Brest Bretagne out on top. With such a tight group and teams taking points off of each other, it was very entertaining. Was there anyone else in particular among that group of teams that you really enjoyed watching over the last couple of months?
I think every team deserved the 2nd place, but I have to say that Brest really deserved 1st place. I think they showed the best handball out of all teams through all the season. They had some like two or three defeats, but it was like a bad day, I can say. But I think they really, really play good. Yakireva is back in her best. Literally, it's so enjoyable to see her play, and she's, if Popovic is maybe doing the bringing out the best on the bench, she's doing that on the court. Literally, she makes everyone around herself better. So I think that was really enjoying to watch, especially also Ana Gross, who's retiring at the end of the season, scoring 100th goal in Ljubljana. It was really, really a memorable moment of this group phase. So I think I can say Brest was one of the team that entertained me most, and I think has the best chances to advance to Budapest.
Yeah, and as we said, FTC finishing third in that group after it looked like they, before this incredible run from
They were
Jessamine.
so happy. They were so happy to get the third place to avoid potential quarterfinals with Győr.
Yeah. Again, we were looking into the ins and outs of it, but also there's there's something to be said for finishing third, really not the worst place possible, and that is the fascinating thing when we have this Women's Champions League where there are, I think we can say maybe 7 teams that are like proper contenders, and then a couple of teams that could hurt others. But really nice to see the battles at the top of both groups, which I think we were maybe a little bit worried about the last couple of seasons wouldn't quite be the case. But so tight in that group. The 2 Danish teams, 4th and 5th there, Odense and Ikast. I mean, with Odense, we don't need to count them out yet as well. We saw what they were able to do last season, and being 4th place is also, if they were to get through, not necessarily a team that someone like Győr will enjoy playing against.
For sure, and I think Odense started the season very, very well. But then they picked up some injuries in some important players, and I remember they played, I think, against Jessamine, like the first game, and they didn't have a rotation in back line, which we are used with Odense. So I think it's even better for a handball fan to see Győr Odense quarterfinal than any other. I think that it's not safe for Győr at all. We always know, like, okay, we can count Győr in Budapest, but I think this time Odense can bring a big fight in that
sure can.
matchup.
And, we've seen Győr's, not say a weakness, but we've seen what can happen to them in recent weeks as well. If we shift over to Group A, Győr winning it on the head-to-head record with Metz, with both teams finishing on 24 points. And then a 5-point gap between Esbjerg. But we've seen some incredible results towards the end of that group. Esbjerg finally getting their first competitive win over Győr and doing it in a devastatingly good fashion, opening up a double-digit lead already in the first half, celebrating that win. Just then, the next week, to get beaten by 14 goals away to Metz, which is, it's it screams Esbjerg all over in one way, doesn't it, Aleksa?
Yeah, literally. I feel like Esbjerg had the bumpiest road they ever had in Champions League, like from losing to Bistrica to dropping point with Budućnost to winning against Győr to getting destroyed by Metz. It was really ups and downs. But I feel Esbjerg is always a dangerous, and I think this may be one of the first seasons where it's not about Henny Reistad. She will perform well. It's about if the others perform well, if they have a help from goalkeepers, from right backs. So I think when that happens, Esbjerg is really strong, like it was with Győr. So I think in a potential way, they could be a really, really dangerous hit for Jessamine if the day is perfect for the others. And we know what the Esbjerg can do, and they proved sometimes, okay, it was a bumpy road, but in a perfect day, they can be really, really dangerous.
Well, what do you think that bumpy road comes down to with them? Is it the fact that the supporting cast haven't quite been as, I guess, as consistently good as usual? Because when it comes to the full squad in itself, it's never looked healthier in a way. We're so used to seeing Esbjerg over the years battle away with 9.5 players in the squad, but they've got a fairly full squad this season. And maybe that in itself brings a little bit of inconsistency, even though it might be more sustainable for the season. What do you put it down to?
Yeah, it was weird because I think they never had more players than now, but I know some fans are arguing about the coaching, which I wouldn't say it's 100% true, but it can be a bit of a problem. But I think it's like some players are really underperforming than maybe they are used to. As I said, okay, you have Henny scoring 10 goals, but like we are used to it. Like, but we are not seeing other players stepping up. Again, then they got injury in Tabea Schmid, one great line player. Okay, that's maybe a setback, but I think they still have two line players that can fill that gap she left. So I think maybe it's a bit of coaching, maybe it's a bit of form that they are in, but it's been like they do good and they do bad, but yeah, you never know what it is. Maybe it's inconsistency, maybe it's coaching.
For Jared and Mets, then two teams top of the table side by side in 24 points is not a massive surprise to see them so closely matched. What do you think of Jared at the moment? They in their last couple of games had to deal with personnel problems of their own. That Esbjerg game was a remarkable performance from Esbjerg, but it just seemed like everything that could go wrong for Jared in the first half did. I guess one way to look at it is maybe that it's better that it happens now rather than later on in the season.
Yeah, I think the start was furious from Győr, and I was like, oh, another season where they will win. But later on, of course, they picked up some injuries and they had some not many good games. But I think it will get better because they didn't have a line player. They did with a Dulfer solution, something like that. They brought a Danish line player now, Ida Maria Dahl. So I think they fixed that problem. But I think Győr is always dangerous, Maybe it was not the greatest play at the end of the group phase, but they had a furious first half of the season, crushing FTC in the domestic league, crushing Esbjerg. Really, they showed the big power. So I think they can recall that with the time, especially if Sako once again proves. I think she's like the capital of Győr. If she brings on the great performance in the quarterfinals, I don't think they can be shaken, especially at home.
As you said, they're getting through to the quarterfinals. Does also give them some time to get players back in to replenish that squad a little bit until April when they have those quarterfinals. If we have a quick look here, then at the potential path to Budapest, we have four teams that are through to the quarterfinals. Cseme will be waiting for one of Podravka or Esbjerg, and you teased it there at the top, Aleksa. That is a stunningly brilliant game to have in the quarterfinals. Almost sad that it's not happening later in the competition. You have to worry for Cseme, despite how good they've been. They have the most horrendous quarterfinal record.
Yeah, I know when the group phase was finished, Bojana Popovic said that she would like to play 8 playoffs. She said that it would be better for her to gather players more, but I don't know if it was because of Esbjerg or what. But I think of course, it's a psychological moment to get Esbjerg again, especially for some players that have been there for quite some time, like Umoregi and Pintea, to lose so many quarterfinals, so tight. It's quite depressing to have them again. But I heard Gabi Moreski speaking that she, for example, she doesn't have a complex with Esbjerg because she wasn't there for so long time and she didn't play that much quarterfinals against Esbjerg. Sorry, so. She said that it doesn't matter for her if they're there again, but I think maybe she said that and maybe it's true. There are a lot of new players in Cseme, but I think fans, environment, it's still, we're gonna see this again. But you saw that Esbjerg couldn't handle Győr for quite some time and they finally did it, so maybe it's time for Cseme to get revenge for all these painful losses they had past.
Are we saying that playoffs between third and sixth place teams, so Podravka, Esbjerg and Dortmund FTC are fairly safe with the higher seeds going through?
Yes, I think I like more, for example, the play of Podravka than one of the Dortmund, but I think they also picked up some injuries this season and they're not playing their best. They won what they had to advance, but I think it's the end of the road for them with Esbjerg.
Yeah, okay. And FTC would get Mets if they were to qualify, which, as you said, they were quite happy to avoid avoid Jared in the potential quarterfinal. But that also feels like a fascinating battle between two teams that, historically at least, you can never be 100% sure where their mentality lies and which version of the team is going to show up in these big games.
That's true. Maybe we can talk about the forms of other potential quarterfinals, but I think this matchup can go either way. You never know. Remember what happened like 3 years ago with FTC and Mess in that same quarterfinal matchup. So I think of course they should be happy to avoid Yor, but they got the same juggernaut in Mess. Like it's not like, oh, we are happy we got Mess. It's powerhouse, especially at home, but like it's a completely unpredictable matchup. Like you never know what they're gonna bring. I'm not impressed by the play FTC showed. I think Jensen needs more time to get his style in. I feel it's still more Balkanish Hungarian style in terms of players. Next season she brought up some players that he knows very well, but still I think it's a Balkanish player style compared with the Danish handball. Maybe he needs more time to settle in down, but still I think it's quite unpredictable quarterfinal matchup.
On the other playoffs then, and that's where things get a little bit tastier. I think with IKAS Bistrica as one of the playoffs, Debrecen and Odense in the other one. Are you giving the Danish teams the slight advantage here, or do you think there's chance that we'll see a new team really break into the quarterfinal stages?
I think in that matchup, Debrecen can give a fight for sure, especially in first leg at home. But still, I think Odense has more power in the squad to overcome everything. Then that fourth playoff that we mentioned, I think it's also quite unpredictable. I mean, Bistrica comes as a top half team spot. They have a home advantage, but I think IKAS showed great handball. Unfortunate, they finished fifth. I mean, they beat the group leaders. They beat both teams that are qualified in the quarterfinals. Brest at away game and Chessame at home. So I think they have a maybe better four, but I still think a home advantage plays, especially if home advantage is in Romania, plays a big role in the matchup. So it's quite unpredictable to see who gonna advance in that one. But overall, I would give maybe 5% more to IKAS.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Overall, with looking at this road to Budapest and talking about the matchups and the groups, it feels like there is a bit more, depth and a tighter pack here at the top level than we've seen in recent years. And I want to get your feelings on where you think the women's club game at the highest level is now at the moment, because I think we've really had a hangover in the last few years with the exclusion of the Russian teams and that kind of the gap which has been left behind. Not even to mention the fact that Vipers are no longer there, and there's been a big drop off on the Norwegian level. But overall, it feels like the top pack here with 7, 8, 9 teams are in quite a healthy position, and nothing is really guaranteed here.
That's true. I think for the first time we don't know who will for sure qualify for the Budapest, but I think actually the same players as we had for quite some time. But I feel like we got a step up in coaching terms. Mm-hmm. Especially I have to mention the Brest and the Chessame coaches that are actually both women. I think we lacked the top quality coaches, and maybe that's what we needed for past few years. The standard Budapest teams were the one who had the best coaches in the game, and the other teams that were top of the game maybe didn't have that much quality in terms of coaching. So I think maybe that's where we stepped up this season. So, but I'm happy to see more and more clubs. I think even more clubs can get their hands in Budapest. They just need maybe some more financial aid, or to bring some players that maybe are not playing even European League. And then I think, especially with, I know I saw the THF put a roadmap to bring more
Yeah.
women coaches. So I really support it and I'm really positive about it because I think that's what we lack in our sport, good coaching. I feel like if you have a good coaching, you don't need, the biggest example is Mess. You don't need to have the biggest players, but if you have the greatest of coaching, it's gonna give us a result. So I think
Fascinating.
that's the difference between this season and maybe the others. The players, they are same, maybe they're playing better or worse, but it's the quality is there in terms of playing, and I'm happy to see good coaching this season.
Oh, very well said, Alexa. We have those playoff games coming in just over 2 weeks' time, with the 21st and 22nd of March, the first leg. Before that, all of these players are going to have to get through the national team week, which started yesterday, and we're going to let you go in a couple of minutes as you're going to be working on it, as will I later on today as we record. But a quick note on some of the games we've already had, and a few surprises already, and we started with some great news from for your Montenegrin heart. We're gonna finish with some mixed emotions for you there, because yeah, we had Belgium, first of all, incredible first win for them over the Macedonians, which is lovely to see, also considering how, a few years ago they were completely off of the map. Faroe Islands getting a victory over Portugal. We knew what they were capable of. And Iceland. I know you're a bit of a softie for the Nordic nations, but Iceland beating Montenegro for the first time yesterday as well. What did you make of that?
And I was so happy for all these three teams, even if Iceland beat my Montenegro. But I'll start with Belgium. They were completely off the map. I was like, is this their first victory ever? And it actually is in the qualifiers. And I think that's what brings popularity in handball. Emotions. It was wild game. It was wild ending. Crowd went completely wild. Players were extremely happy. And I think that's a positive impact. That's a thing that can bring popularity in Belgium of handball. Because if someone new who never saw handball was on that game, they were happy probably, and they were like, oh, this is amazing sport, look what we did. And then maybe some sponsors were there and they were like, okay, we're gonna invest in these girls. So I'm happy that happened, especially in Belgium, in that crowd, and made me really, really happy. And I hope they will, okay, maybe not these qualifiers anymore, but in the future they're gonna get bigger and bigger, like we got used to, I think, with these small nations in Portugal in men handball, Faroe Islands incomplete. Then Faroe Islands beating Portugal, I think it was quite obvious, maybe. I think we should get used to Faroe Islands being good. I mean,
Yeah.
they are good and they are gonna beat every time these, let's say, low tier teams. And then Iceland beating Montenegro, actually. Montenegro was quite underperforming, especially in defense. They had like 12 penalties given to Iceland. So it's not because of some bad refereeing or something. It's probably because of bad defense, especially when you play against these Nordic teams and they have a lot of one-on-one players. When you give actually 12 penalties, it's because probably your defense wasn't play good. I was reading some statements and they were like, okay, it happened now, but it's horrible. Like, we have to stop doing things we did maybe for quite some time that brings us bad results. And I agree, maybe I think there should be some more strictness in this team, but like, I'm happy for Iceland in terms of, okay, they beat them for the first time in 15 years, they get off the mark in the group. Now the group is a bit more tight in terms of points, but maybe not in terms of excitement who will proceed to the Euro. But I think it's good for Iceland to finally get off, and maybe they also develop in some terms. I think they have quality one-on-one players, but with some good development, maybe they can do the same as Faroe Islands.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were very exciting to see back in November and December at the World Championship. And the nice thing about this international week, of course, is that it's back-to-back games. So Montenegro have a chance, and maybe, we'll flex their muscles a little bit. Maybe we'll see 20 shots from Georgina Jakovic over the weekend.
Yeah, 12 goals was not enough this time. Now on Sunday we expect more.
Yeah, so those three games, definitely ones to watch out for over the weekend. Also, the Netherlands-Switzerland, I think, should be a fun one as well to keep
For
an eye
sure,
on.
that Swiss team is quite fun to watch, but I think without the Schmidt, they lose a lot of power in both attack and defense. But maybe in Switzerland, it could be potentially a really good game. I have to note their wingers of Switzerland, they're amazing. They're so young and so amazing.
There's so many years to come for this team, that's for sure. I think we already talked about them the last Euro and how they could be developing. So it's a long road, but that's what I think is great about these developing nations in women's handball in particular, that they have a proper roadmap now to build on for the years to come. And it's not a case of maybe seeing results all the time in the next year or two, but something sustainable in the next 5 to 10 years, which is nice to see. It's time for you to do your coverage on the Euro Games, and I just want to thank you for your time, Aleksa. It's a pleasure as always, and I'm sure we'll check in with you again later in the season as we get closer to Budapest.
Thank you, Chris. It was my pleasure. And I just want to have to point one thing for the listeners. We have to mention Natalie Hagman scoring her 1,000th goal for the national team. What an achievement for a legend of Swedish handball.
Absolute legend, who might be making her way back to Budapest as well, which would be great to see in a Jura jersey. One of those players who I think, the handball nerds among us always appreciate, but not everyone gets to see enough of her, I think, at the highest level. So, particularly on the club side.
I feel we deserved more of her in Champions League. But we got it in Győr.
Lovely way to finish. Aleksa, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you to Aleksa. Fantastic chat about the Champions League. And before that, Katie Timmermann telling us about her Olympic dreams in just 2.5 years, the steps she's taking to get there, and all of the buzz surrounding the women's US national team at the moment. Hope you enjoyed the show and the action coming your way this weekend. We'll be back next week, first on Patreon with a Morning Club episode about the final round of Champions League and European League games, and back soon again with another public episode for you all. Until then, everyone, take care and goodbye.